And I say, let's be heard. We continue with your WABC New York weekend. And I want to tell you how grateful I am to so many of you for your reaction to my returning to this spot here on WABC. What a joy it is and continues to be. You are demonstrating to me once again that you, members of this audience, do have a greater appreciation for what this country once stood for and maybe can stand for again. I must put it that way because right now I really am not very sanguine about the future of this once great republic. I see where Michigan Democrat Carl Levin, United States Senator, chairman of the Armed Services Committee, the Armed Forces Committee in the United States Senate, says the income tax will have to go up considerably to pay an additional $40 billion for President Obama's venture into Afghanistan. I put it that way because President Obama said repeatedly throughout the campaign in 2008, and I know last March of 2009, again alluded to Afghanistan as, quote, the good war. The bad war, of course, was unmentioned at the time, but he had made it quite clear that anything George W. Bush had dealt with was bad. And that, I think, is the most disturbing feature of Barack Obama. That unlike other presidents, you can look it up, even Jimmy, I'll never lie to you, Carter, waited until he was out of office for quite some time until he started lambasting his predecessors and his successors. But we've got so many things to talk about, I don't want to get bogged down on just that one issue, ladies and gentlemen. You may have heard the announcement just prior to the introduction of the Bob Grant program here that Newsmax is offering the book on Sarah Palin, and Newsmax had a considerable interview with Sarah Palin. We're going to be talking to the man who conducted the interview and the man who is in charge of Newsmax magazine, Chris Ruddy. And we'll be talking to Chris later on during round one of our two-round extravaganza. And in round number two, Peter King, who is absolutely a delight. You always know where Peter King stands. Peter King is not one of these timorous office holders who is obviously only interested in not offending anybody because he might lose some votes. If we had 434 other Peter Kings in the United States Congress, we would be much better off. By the way, it is simply not true that America is ambivalent about everything when it comes to the Obama health plan. The day after the Congressional Budget Office, that's the CBO, the day after they gave their qualified blessing to the version of health reform produced by Senate Majority Leader, the smarmy Harry Reid. Do you see this Quinnipiac University poll of the national cross-section of voters? Well, it reported its latest results. Now, this is not as famous as some of the others. But people like David Broder, for example, who has gained, deservedly, a great deal of respect, he feels that it's one of the best because of its professionalism. Now, here's what the Quinnipiac poll said. President Obama has pledged that health insurance reform will not add to our federal budget deficit over the next decade. Do you think that President Obama will be able to keep his promise? Or do you think that any health care plan that Congress passes and Obama signs will add to the federal budget deficit? That's the question that was asked. And the answer from a lot of you folks who may be listening to me right now. Less than 1/5 of the voters, 19% of the sample, think he will keep his word. 9 of 10 Republicans and 8 of 10 independents said that whatever passes will add to the torrent of red ink. And by a margin of 4-3, even Democrats agreed this is likely. Now, the fear contributed directly to the fact that by a 16-point margin, the majority in this poll said they oppose the legislation moving through Congress. Now, this is obviously turning out to be the case. While the CBO said that both the House-passed bill and the one Reid has drafted meet Obama's test by being budget neutral, every expert says that the public, that's you folks, that's you, has it right. These bills, as they stand, are budget busters. Just for example, folks, Robert Bixby, the executive director of the Concord Coalition, it's a bipartisan group of budget watchdogs. He says, let me quote him, the Senate bill is better than the House version, but there's not much reform in this bill. As of now, it's basically a big entitlement expansion. I'm not the only one who's told you this was going to happen. There's a growing chorus of people who are wise to this guy and his administration. And how about Mayor McGinnis, the president of the Bipartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget? While this bill does a better job than the House version of reducing the deficit and controlling costs, it still doesn't do enough. Now, I don't want to bore you to tears with all of this stuff, but the fact of the matter is, the gross increase will be almost $1 trillion. That's $848 billion to be exact, mainly to subsidize the uninsured. So the net increase would be $160 billion. But this depends on two big gambles. Now get this. Will future Congresses actually impose the assumed $420 billion in cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and other federal health programs? They never have in the past, and they won't now. And so I say to you, senior citizens, and I know a lot of you, shame on you, you didn't know any better, did vote for Barack. Fact is, they want to take it out of your program, your Medicare program. Cut it by $420 billion to give it to who exactly? Who? Ah, dear me. This is going to go on for a long time. I must tell you that if we can hold out long enough, then maybe in 2010 things will change, if you get my point here. We're going to take a brief time out here, and when we do return, I'll remind you in the meantime that our telephone number is 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. 9222. If you take a look at your phone, you'll see that those numbers spell out WABC. And when we continue, we'll pick up those telephones and take some phone calls straight ahead. And I said we'd take some telephone calls, and indeed we shall. And let's do it right now. Let's go to Hartford, the capital of the state of Connecticut, and say hello to Ferris. Yes, you're on WABC, Ferris.
Good afternoon to you and to my fans in New York City. You are the one who went first, and I just wanted to mention that we lost it last night for good. This cannot be stopped. Last night's vote was the determining factor, and we are going to get the government health care monopoly.
Well, I don't know. It's not a done deal yet. There's still some hope. Ben Nelson of Nebraska, a Democrat, who really should be a Republican, but Ben Nelson may be the harbinger of beating this thing.
Well, I know you don't know, and that's why I called to tell you that these people are squirrels. And, of course, we got Lieberman, who ran for cover by saying that he would not stop it here, and he would vote it down later. You see, Reed's got the nuclear option. He will go for this 51 vote majority to pass this thing, and that's why it had to be stopped last night. And the only way that I can be wrong is if there's such a public uprising, and I mean uprising. I don't mean people wasting their time making phone calls, which are a complete waste of time, and sending emails, which are simply deleted.
I define uprising in your imagination. How do you see it?
You want me to define what an uprising is? An uprising is what I do every day. I get in front of these people. I send people I know to visit them and get in their face and threaten them with the consequences of the destruction of this country through this last nail in the coffin, which is called the government option, which you want to call a public option, and so does everyone else. But it is.
How about Nancy Pelosi's phony baloney consumer option?
Yeah, sure. It's very good, Bob. And there's another word. See, the left always tries to confuse you by changing the words on things.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what they did to the term homosexual marriage? It became gay. Now, I had a gay marriage. Right now with me is my father-in-law, who provided a gay wedding reception for my wife and myself.
Your wife?
Yes. My father-in-law provided the wedding reception. It used to be customary in this country. And he's here, and he can attest to the fact that my wedding was a gay wedding.
Oh,
and it was a gay reception, you see. But then the word
Ferris,
became...
you're supposed to be a real wild left-winger because they say that most homosexuals are way over to the left politically.
Well, no, you see, you misunderstand, Bob. I am not a homosexual at all. I am as straight as they come. But
well, then what are you talking about here? What's your shtick? Why don't you go on the stage instead of calling me? Come on.
Well, it's because you need to hear the truth, and the way the left steers everything is through the wording, as you mentioned, that Pelosi put the label of consumer option on this thing. And they realize that by changing the words that right-thinking people use, they can change the perception of the concept that's on the table. And another good example of that is the term gay, which you have picked up and used, and others have, O'Reilly, the whole gang. And if you follow what it is...
Okay. All right. Listen, I think you're an interesting guy, but I am not ordinarily so optimistic, but I'm not sure this horrendous... destructive health care program is going to actually make it. We shall see, Ferris. Thank you very much. Joel in New York City. You're on WABC. This is Bob Grant. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Grant. How are you, sir? I had spoken with you last week about something called the Copenhagen Climate Treaty Conference.
Yes.
It's going to be held starting December 7th in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Yes.
And there has been an update on this. Apparently, the European Union has selected for their first president the Belgian Prime Minister, whose name is Herman van Rompuy. And he's saying that his first goal and his major goal in running the European Union, and he will also be the president of the Copenhagen Climate Treaty Conference, is global governance over all of the signatories to that particular plan. And from what we understand, one of the major signatories to that plan will be President Barack Obama when he goes overseas to accept his Nobel Peace Prize, and then will be making his way to Copenhagen to be a signatory on this particular document. What I would appreciate it if you might be able to do when you have Congressman King on later, and of course when you're going to be following up shortly with Chris Ruddy, I'd like to see if you can get information from them as to what their thoughts are in reference to this particular matter, because if global governance is exactly what these people are looking at, and if we are unfortunate enough to sign on to that particular plan, what does that portend for our future?
Absolutely. I thank you very much, Joel. One of the main reasons that I have opposed the 44th president is that he wants to subvert the United States Constitution and make it inferior. I'm not making this up, folks. He wants to make it inferior to a world government. That's why it's very difficult to consider him an American citizen. I know we're not supposed to say that. As a matter of fact, some people are considered virtual convicts because they still question where Barack Obama was born, because they actually have the temerity to say, what's the big deal? Where's your birth certificate? I think if there were anybody that had a questionable background, and you were to say, hey, we can settle this discussion very easily. All you have to do is produce your birth certificate. And if he doesn't produce his birth certificate, what are you supposed to think? But I didn't intend to go down that road at this time. Barack Obama has stated he believes in world government. And if you don't like it, talk to him about it. Don't talk to me. A telephone number, 1-800-848-WABC. And here's Sandra from Yorktown. Yes, Sandra.
Hi, Bob. Great program. I'm a big fan of yours. I would like to know, and I think this should be brought out over and over and over to Congress, if it's such a great health care plan, how come they are exempting themselves from it? Because this is just nonsense. This is a very false impression that this is such a good plan that they're trying to do, according to them. Because then they should have to be in it. And then we'd see the improvement.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's a good point. But Congress has always taken care of itself. Always taken care of itself. They don't want you to know that. They know that. It's a huge sacrifice for them to go to Washington to represent your congressional district or your state. But they give themselves everything. And by the way, they give themselves a cushy pension. You get it after only 5 years' service. It's not even 3 full terms. And yet, they're conspiring with the IRS to scuttle a lot of pension plans. You didn't know that? Well, you better hang on, folks. You better hang on. It's a bumpier ride than even some of us thought it was going to be. Chris Ruddy of Newsmax will be joining us shortly, talking about Sarah Palin and this blockbuster book of hers called Sarah Palin, Going Rogue, An American Life. And before we take a break, I want to let this sink in. Here's page 371 of her book. And she talks about how hurtful the attacks on her were, especially those that were directed at Trig, T-R-I-G. That's the little one with Down syndrome. on the internet, a fake Planned Parenthood ad showed a photo of Sarah Palin holding Trig. In one corner, there was a coat hanger, and in the other, a slogan. Better luck next time. And Sarah Palin asks, what kind of a person creates something like that? Maybe the same kind who would Photoshop distorted images over Trig's pretty face in order to make him look monstrous. That person who did this proudly displayed it on her website. She was also the official Alaska blogger for the Democratic National Committee during the 2008 election. These people are mean, they are vicious, and why they hate this woman so much is psychopathic. Straight ahead. And we continue here. As promised, we have Mr. Chris Ruddy on the telephone line with us right now. And Newsmax magazine presented their announcement just prior to the beginning of today's Bob Grant program. You may have heard it. And so here we have the story of a person who 1 year ago burst onto the national political stage like a comet. And yet, even now, few Americans know who this remarkable woman really is. How do you like this book, Chris? You've read many books. You've interviewed many authors. What do you think?
Well, I think that it's a testament to her charisma and the interest that she's generated that people want to know her story, Bob. She is a fascinating person, put aside the politics. Here's a woman that really came from a very humble background. Her family were not wealthy. She went to college, paid her way through school, married, had 5 children. Her husband that she married was not wealthy. She's probably been making more money than he has in recent years. And yet she was able to run for mayor of a small town and parlay that into becoming a statewide figure and then running for governor. And then, in short order, going from governor to vice presidential nomination. So I know she's very controversial. A lot of people love her and hate her. But you have to give this lady her due that she's had a remarkable rise for some ordinary person. And I think that's what's part of the fascination with her and why her book is going to be a runaway bestseller. It could be one of the biggest nonfiction selling books in recent history.
I tell you, I received my copy the other day, and I was surprised at how well written it is, how interesting it is, and there is so much to learn. I didn't get the feeling that it was an apologia for anything but straight talk.
Well, that's one of the reasons Newsmax has been so supportive of the book. People say, are we supporting her for president? And I say no, not yet. We haven't decided who we're going to endorse for president. I think it's a little early. But I think it's something that the mainstream media is just crazed by the interest and support that she's generating, and I think that makes me happy. We have been offering the book, by the way, at a very steep discount. People can get it for $4.97 and get a free trial subscription to Newsmax magazine. And I might add, Bob, that people that are listening today can take advantage of that and call 800-NEWSMAX, 800-NEWSMAX, to take advantage of that very special offer for her book and save about, I think it's $24 off the cover price.
And you talk about how vicious some of these people are. They're all on the left. I don't know anybody on the right that's particularly vicious against her. Not that everybody on the right supported her, but what do you think is the reason for this visceral hatred of this woman?
Well, I think it's a visceral hatred for what she stands for. She's a conservative Christian. She likes Ronald Reagan. She's a real, true, believing conservative on economic issues, defense issues, social issues. And I think that just drives people in the liberal media. I'm going to call it now the liberal media bubble. It drives them just nuts when they hear about the success of this book. Thousands of people showing up for book signings for her. And it's interesting, she was asked this week on Sean Hannity's Fox News show. Sean asked her what news sources she read, and I don't know if you heard that, Bob, but she said that the first words out of her mouth was, I read Newsmax.
Great.
So it was a nice plug for Newsmax. And she mentioned the Wall Street Journal and other news sources, but that was the first one. And what really is fascinating about this is the media reaction to her naming Newsmax. Keith Olbermann, who, as you know, is very liberal-leaning on MSNBC, made a big to-do. He called it the number one feature of the night. He says, you're not going to believe this. She named Newsmax her top news source. And then he had Craig Crawford of the Congressional Quarterly. He's a very well-established journalist, liberal-leaning. And he says, can you believe this, that she says she reads Newsmax? And Craig Crawford responded, well, I read Newsmax. So we got an enjoyable kick out of that. But what was really interesting is an article that appeared in a liberal media blog called Mediaite. And this writer said, how could she pick Newsmax? Nobody I know reads Newsmax. They're not really cited anywhere. He said that they have no real following. And I'm thinking to myself, remember that famous story of the person said that they couldn't believe Nixon had won the election because they didn't know anybody that had voted for him in 1972?
Yeah.
Well, this is like the same thing. This writer, obviously, Nielsen says we're the largest Republican-leaning website in the country. We get 4 million visitors every month to Newsmax.com. I have magazine readership now of about 800,000 a month. I have 2 million email subscribers. But he doesn't know anybody that reads us. And then he says nobody cites us. I mean, it's just bizarre. They live in a liberal media bubble.
I love it. How's the cruise going?
Well, the cruise is going phenomenally well. We've had tremendous interest. We're about halfway booked in terms of all the bookings that we're expecting. As you know, we're going out of Fort Lauderdale with a illustrious crowd, including yourself. You're going to be joining Dick Morris and Ron Kessler and Ralph Reed and Grover Norquist and a number of other luminaries. I'm going.
Will the ship tilt to the starboard side or to the port side?
It's going to be definitely lopsided to the right side.
And
I might mention anybody that's interested in that can go to, if they go to Newsmax.com, on the bottom right-hand side, there's a little ad that says Join Dick Morris. And then when they click on it, they'll see your picture listed on the cruise for March 21st out of Fort Lauderdale on Holland America. And if they can't go to that, click on the Newsmax banner, they can call on Monday 800-707-1634 to join you, me, and Dick Morris at 800-707-1634.
Chris, before I let you go, I have to ask your reaction to what happened in the United States Senate last night.
Well, no surprise. And I think that the Democrats felt they had to, people like Joe Lieberman and others, that they were going to allow it to go to a floor debate. But I was watching Meet the Press. Joe Lieberman, I think, has been a stalwart on this, and he says he's not going to vote for any bill that has a public option. And even Senator Lincoln of Arkansas says she voted to let it go forward in debate, but she's going to oppose it as it is. So I don't know, unless they do this nuclear option, how they're going to get this bill passed.
And one final point. I had a caller in the previous half hour ask about the Copenhagen meeting, and here we have a German magazine coming out saying, forget about global warming, there is no more global warming. What do you think is going to happen there?
They believe in global warming as a religious exercise. I think it's going to be hard to dissuade them by the facts. Already the science was very shady on this and suspicious. And then in the past 5 years, there's been even more evidence that in fact we might be heading more to global cooling than warming.
Yes.
But they have, and it's not really about global. It's like healthcare. It's not really about healthcare. It's about socialism. It's a backdoor to socialism. I hear the cap and trade bill. The government's going to be able to come into everyone's house and basically monitor all their energy usage and activities.
Yep. Chris Ruddy, I want to congratulate you and Newsmax magazine on how well things are going. And speaking of going rogue is a dynamite bestseller. It might be breaking all kinds of records.
Well, you started going rogue. You went rogue, 40 years ago? So I want to thank you, Bob, for being there at the beginning in so many ways for Newsmax and for this country.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. Straight ahead, everybody, straight ahead. And let's pick up that telephone, folks. Sheldon from Oceanside. You're on WABC. Hello, Sheldon.
Hi, Bob. It's a deep honor to speak with you. You did break the mold on let's be heard, and listening to you on the radio, many, many, many years ago. And, without you, there'd be no Sean Hannity or anybody else, because you really deserve a little credit for getting a head start on the nation on a lot of these issues. So I wanted to say that for starters. And
well, let me say this: Sean and Mark and Rush and all of them, they all have been very acknowledging in what you're saying, and I appreciate that. Yeah,
I'm glad about that. I wanted to say a word just about that vote to allow the Senate to debate this issue. I'm very disappointed in Joe Lieberman specifically, and then Ben Nelson and Landgraf and all these people, because basically, I understand they must have been under heavy political pressure to vote yes to not embarrass Reid, let it come to the floor. But the bottom line is that there's always the possibility that once it's on the floor, that they're also going to be under tremendous pressure again to vote for a bill that they probably don't want, this public option. And the Democrats basically, and I used to be a Democrat, but the Democrats are committing really a sleight of hand, and they're being very, very, for lack of a better way of putting it, very dishonest in terms of how they're presenting this bill, because, the average American doesn't realize that it doesn't take effect until 2014. Of course,
well, the average American is very lazy, doesn't read, doesn't listen, doesn't study, doesn't pay attention. That's why the most knowledgeable people in America are people who listen to talk radio, WABC.
No, you're right.
I'm just a part of the whole landscape here, but I say that because it's true. Now let's not get away from the harsh realities of our political system. These guys, whether it's Joe Lieberman, whether it's Ben Nelson, these are the best Democrats I guess you could find, but these guys are really interested first and foremost in getting re-elected.
Yeah.
If you went up to any of them, if you went up to Blanche Lincoln of Arkansas, if you went to Landro of Louisiana, no matter who you went up to, you'd say, here's how you get reelected. You start talking through your nose. Just say, my name is... just talk that way, you'll get reelected. You want to see? They would start talking that way. Or if you said, walk around eating a ham sandwich at all times, you'll get whatever it takes to get reelected. That's all they care about. Can't the public understand that?
Right. It's too bad. It's too bad for the public, and it's too bad that the public doesn't understand that the bill wouldn't take effect if it was passed until 2014. So when they talk about the first 10 years, where it's not being in effect, and the Congressional Budget Office is saying it's going to save money, but when they go out to the next 10 years, when it's going to be in full effect, it's costing a whopping huge amount of money. And the way the Democrats are presenting this.
All right, Sheldon, I think you've made a good point. I appreciate your contribution to the program. Thank you very much. Let's say hello to Meyer in Forest Hills, New York. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Very great pleasure talking to you. One point that must not be lost sight of is the judiciary. In a country based on law, the last branch is very important. Any challenge to law based on constitutionality will have to come before the court system. Now, the last period, urgent efforts have been made to stuff the federal judiciary with radical left judges.
Oh, you said it.
The crucial thing is this: if the regime, the current regime, succeeds in doing that, any challenge to constitutionality of laws passed will be rejected, turned down. There will be no final recourse through the court, which should be the place of final recourse. Among other things to focus on, we must not forget the judicial system and the fact that as they do many things at one time with different hands, they're trying to capture the last and only remaining recourse in this government so that there will be no recourse to the courts.
Right, you are. Very good point. Thank you, Meyer. Meyer understands something so many people just are totally ignorant of, and that is the importance of the courts. For example, who appointed these judges in New York City? Who appointed these judges that let predators, dangerous people, people who commit violent crimes, walk the streets? I was reading this morning, and I believe it was the New York Post. They have a rundown of some of the most horrendous enemies of society walking free. Judges are constantly letting them go, either no bail, low bail. It's just mind-boggling. And our court system, ladies and gentlemen, I think is turning out to be a big failure. When you have somebody, it's not just in New York. Let's go down to Orlando, Florida. You have this person who, I hear the music. That means we got to, I tell you, I get so emotional about this, really. I'm supposed to be able to talk unemotionally, but I can't when I think of what they're doing to this country. Straight ahead. And I thank you, and let's be heard. Round 2 of our get-together. We do this every Sunday from 12 noon until 2. And we are followed by some great programs, folks. We've got Eric Hastings. He does a travel show, and you don't want to miss that. What about illegal aliens? I haven't heard a caller talk about illegal aliens in a couple of weeks. The only reason I mention that is I did get some email from people who are convinced that Barack Obama has it in mind for illegal aliens to be covered by this new health care plan. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. There's so many things to investigate. No secret, folks, that my favorite United States congressman is representing the 3rd Congressional District in New York. And you should know by this time his name is Peter King. Welcome to the broadcast, Congressman.
Bob, how are you doing? Always great to be with you.
Well, listen, I got a bunch of questions for you, and I was thinking about the fact that we were going to be talking on the program when I was reading, for example, David Broder, the Washington Post. Now, he's certainly no conservative, but he calls the bill that the Senate voted on a budget buster in the making. What's your reaction to that?
I agree completely. This is a total budget buster. And, I mean, the cost is going to be astronomical. I mean, the reason they come down with some $800 and something $billion price tag is because they leave out, for instance, the increase in Medicare reimbursements for doctors, which is at least another $250, $300 billion. And also, all these costs are being downplayed. No, there's no doubt it's going to cost a phenomenal amount. But, I'm of the school that if if a bill is good, maybe it's worth paying some extra money for it. The fact is, it's a bad bill. So we have a bad bill, which is also too expensive. It's and you mentioned the illegal immigrants. This is really classic Obama, in that the bill says that you cannot provide any of this health care to illegal immigrants. However, you're not allowed to ask anyone to prove their citizenship. So if an illegal immigrant comes in, no, he's not entitled to get the health care, but there's no way you can find out that he's illegal. So
don't ask, don't tell.
They are getting health care.
They're extending, don't ask, don't tell.
Basically, that's it. Yeah, I mean, this is an attempt by the Obama administration and the people around him. It's a clear attempt to set up a government-run program similar to Europe. I mean, I don't mean this in any conspiratorial way. I genuinely believe that the people around President Obama and President Obama himself sincerely believe that the European system of government and life and socialization is a model for them, whether it's on foreign policy, whether it's on economics, whether it's on just the way we look at life. I mean, we as Americans, what's always distinguished us is that nothing stops us. We feel that we are exceptional, that we can get the job done, that we can achieve whatever we want to achieve. And they really want to shy away from that. It's as simple as that, I think. I shouldn't say it's as simple as that, but to me, I have no doubt that's the case. And we have to find a way to get that to the American people. It's not issue by issue, because on one particular issue, we can all have honest differences. I see an overall attempt by the Obama administration to Europeanize the United States, to make us one of many countries in the world, and take us away from that sense of exceptionalism that we always had, and ingenuity and self-start and imagination, thinking outside the box, whatever term you want to use, and not expecting the government to do everything for you.
Barack Obama kept saying throughout his campaign, and even after he was elected, that we were going to see a change like we've never seen before. He warned, although he didn't consider it a warning, but he promised that he was going to change America as it's never been changed before. So why should anybody be surprised that he wants to do these idiotic things such as subverting the United States Constitution to a world body?
Bob, that's the one thing I will say in defense of President Obama. He is, to a large extent, doing what he said he was going to do. The American people, for whatever reason, 52% of them weren't listening or didn't want to listen to what he was saying, because whether it's foreign policy, whether it's economic policy, or whether just the whole tone of the speeches he was giving is that he was going to change us as a nation. And he is. He's working toward that. I'm not saying it's an evil motive, but it's a different philosophy than the philosophy that's governed us for over 200 years. And that's what Americans have to realize. These are not just the ordinary political differences that we've had, that we have from administration to administration. This is a definite sea change. Part of it's generational. You have a new breed of Democrat growing up, which just looks at the world differently than most of us have previously. We have a president who believes he can go around the country, go around the world, and apologize to our enemies and antagonize our friends. I mean, he has been hostile toward Israel, hostile toward Poland, hostile toward countries that are standing with us, certainly very hostile toward the British. And yet he goes out of his way to try to placate Iran and Iraq, or I shouldn't say Iraq, but, the hostile elements, somehow blaming it on us. So now this is an administration which is different from others, but again, American people really, if they were listening, this is what he said he was going to do, and he's doing it.
I really believe, and I part company with one of my colleagues in particular, but I really believe it's essential, more essential perhaps in the year 2010 than it's ever been, that the Republicans must sweep the House elections and get control of the House of Representatives. I know some people say, hey, don't be so partisan. No, you've got to be partisan when it comes to an issue like this and a crossroads such as we are facing. Now, I know you're not going to argue with me on that, but it really is so essential to take over the House.
It really is. One, the Republican philosophy is very different from President Obama's. Secondly, even for those Republicans who may not be as strong as we want them to be, they would know that if we do take the House back, it's in 2010, it's with an absolute mandate and a promise to the American people that we are going to be different, that we are going to stand up and resist all of his attempts to socialize America, to weaken our foreign policy, to be bringing 9/11 defendants to the United States and giving them constitutional rights. I mean, this is madness. And when you combine the closing of Guantanamo, or the attempt to close Guantanamo, beginning criminal investigations of the CIA interrogators who kept us safe, giving constitutional rights to mass murderers who are not entitled to any rights at all, trying to socialize our economy. We have to run. We have to run hard. And if we win, I'm confident we can win if we lay out a clear message to the American people. If that happens, then we have no choice but to govern in a way very, very different, totally different from President Obama.
Before I let you go, Congressman Peter King, did you happen to see one of your colleagues who was in the Senate, a man that I was beginning to worry about a little bit, but he seems to have found himself again, and I'm talking about Lindsey Graham, the United States Senator from South Carolina. His cross-examination of Eric Holder was brilliant.
It really was. You're right. Lindsey occasionally tends to take some moderate to liberal positions, or he goes off the reservation, if you will. But no, he just step by step took Eric Holder apart and showed how empty and vacuous and how foolish their policy is toward the Guantanamo detainees. Lindsey just gave him all of these hypothetical cases that Holder had no answer for. And I really think the question is, one of the serious questions is, if tomorrow an American soldier, an American GI in Afghanistan, captures someone very high up in Al-Qaeda, and we know that major attacks are being planned, we know there could be a massive loss of American life, does that soldier have the right to even question that person? Does he have the right to head off the next attack on the battlefield, or does he have to give him his Miranda rights? Holder has no answer to that, and that's what this has done. This case is bad enough bringing these defendants to New York. That is bad enough in and of itself. But what it sets for the future is that we're no longer at war. We're involved playing cops and robbers.
It's absolutely insane. I can't think of any word other than that. Peter King, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, straight ahead. All right, ladies and gentlemen, forging ahead here. We do this every Sunday. If you've just tuned in, 77 on your AM radio dial. So many things to talk about. We barely have time to scratch the surface. But if we overlook something and you think it's vital that it come up for discussion, by all means, let us know. Here's Steve in Bayside checking in right now on WABC. Hello, Steve.
Good afternoon, Bob. Thanks for taking the call. I'm confident that if a health insurance plan is passed requiring the public to buy insurance, it could never survive court scrutiny for the following reason. It would require that the individual incriminate themselves by admitting to the government that they in fact did not purchase a private health insurance policy, and that would, if the penalty is severe enough, that would violate the self-incrimination clause of the United States Constitution, the Fifth Amendment. And I'm sure that the legal beagles surrounding the president are well aware of it. It reminds me of Pataki running on the death penalty law, which was passed and eventually was knocked out on a very basic ground. And I'm sure they're aware of it. But then again, he would have delivered on his campaign promise, and that'll be the end of it.
You say if the penalty were severe enough. Why would the severity of the penalty have any impact on violation of the Fifth Amendment? What's the difference if you are in violation of the Fifth Amendment? It doesn't make any difference if there's a severe penalty or even no penalty.
Well, that's a great question, but I think that in order to incriminate yourself, the penalty that would be dealt out by the government would have to be more than incidental. It would have to be either penal or even a severe fine. But a healthy fine would, in my opinion, trigger that Fifth Amendment protection. This bill and the requirement that the public buy insurance is predicated on the taxpayer checking off something in their tax returns, right, admitting that they didn't purchase it, and that I believe that any legitimate court, federal court, would see clearly violates our Fifth Amendment protection against self-incrimination. They couldn't root out the public who didn't buy the insurance on their own without complicity by, I shouldn't say complete, but without an admission by the individual taxpayer.
What, I know you're a lawyer. What type of law did you specialize in?
Well, I did a lot of appellate litigation on the civil side. Most of my practice dealt in appeals, and I did a lot of litigation at the trial level also, but very little criminal work.
Well, I was thinking about, the reason I asked you that question was I have an email from a person who's very concerned that the Obama administration wants to eviscerate several pensions. And we're not talking about government pensions, union pensions, and that's why I asked you the question I did.
Yeah, it's a detail. Like anything in the law, Bob, it requires an in-depth study to see what it may violate and what it doesn't. Without looking at the specific case, it would be hard to give a general feeling one way or the other.
All right, Your Honor. I thank you very much, Steve.
It's really great to hear you back. And believe me, I turn this week upside down, so I always leave the 12 to 2 slot open for myself on Sunday. And God bless you and have a nice day.
Thank you. You too. Let's go to Hackensack. From the famous Herb Norman song, I broke my back in Hackensack. Anyway, here's Reed. Hello, Reed.
How you doing, sir? Good afternoon.
Yes.
My comments are about the illegal immigration health care issue. If you were an illegal immigrant in Mexico or South America and you had no citizenship, no work or anything like that, and you were severely injured,
yes,
you would not receive the medical treatment that these individuals receive here. In fact, the first thing you would be done is thrown in prison, and you can imagine what health care is like in prison down there.
Yeah.
The second, if you were to be injured on the street as an illegal immigrant, they would throw you out of the hospital because you have no ability to pay or anything like that. And I just find it very contradictory that in this country we give all these individuals, male, female, babies, children, what have you, the health care that is provided, yet in these countries you will not receive the same issue as anybody, regardless of where your country of origin is.
Absolutely. Really, it's just appalling, absolutely appalling how we are destroying ourselves. Thank you very much. Appreciate the call, Reed. Let's go to Al in Butler, New Jersey. Yes, Al.
Hi, Bob. How you doing? You know, Bob, I like Peter King, and he's a great guy. But you know what? We need to stop beating around the bush where Barack Obama is concerned. You know, the people he's appointed as czars, the people he's hung out with, I mean, when someone like Anita Dunn says she admires Mao Zedong, who killed 70 million people, that's evil. If you're associated with evil, you are evil. I do not trust Barack Obama. I believe that he is in many ways like Stalin, Mao Zedong. He believes in these people himself. He did not appoint these people because Anita Dunn is someone he doesn't know anything about. He knows who they are. He knows who Reverend Wright is.
I think you're absolutely correct, Al, and he got away with it because the media has been in his back pocket with two exceptions. Fox News Channel, and talk radio. But so much of the mainstream media was in and still are in his back pocket. No wonder the public is so ill-informed. Thank you very much, Al. Appreciate the call. Here's somebody calling in from, where are you calling from, sir? All right, who do we have? Bill in Vernon. Bill, are you there?
Yeah, how you doing, Bob?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for taking my call. With this health care bill, I see another aspect of this, that most of our population is going to be over, like I said, with 65% are going to be senior citizens. And that means that the majority of people aren't going to be in this new health care bill. They're going to be in Medicare. And that's where they're taking a lot of the money from.
That's right. I've talked to some people. Who are so stupid. They were raised in a home where the Cavone father said, we're Democrats. And that's all they want to know. And these are people who, when I tell them where the money is going to be taken from Medicare, they say, I don't believe that. Well, look it up, for heaven's sake. Don't take my word for it.
I think this is almost a ploy to almost control the elderly or the senior citizens of the United States and also get some control over their finances.
Are you a senior citizen, sir?
Yes, I am.
Well,
I'm a little under 65, but...
Well, listen, I want to tell you something. This fellow, John Holdren, who has been an advisor to President Obama, is the one that said the senior citizens should, quote, get out of the way. What does he mean by that? Oh. And they criticize Sarah Palin because she talks about death panels. What does John Holdren mean when he says the seniors should get out of the way? Thank you very much, Bill in Vernon. Bob Grant here on WABC. A lot of calls coming in. Let's take another one right now. How about Andrew from Hamilton? Hello, Andrew. All right, let's try Jimmy from Woodbridge. Hello, Jimmy.
Hello, Bob. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Bob, last time we got together in person, it was in Woodbridge at the Budget Inn, and I haven't spoken to you since, but it's a great thing to see you back on the air. Terrific. I'm proud of you back on the air for all the people that look forward to talking to you. My concerns center around what you brought up before regarding the illegal alien situation. A lot of people say illegal immigrants, which is totally false. Illegals are aliens, period. Not immigrants. Immigrants are legal people here. I mentioned to your screener, I'd like to mention it to you on the air, that there's a piece that Lou Dobbs did about 8-9 months ago regarding this particular situation, which is on the YouTube scenario. It's called Lou Dobbs, and you scroll down to amnesty bill provisions, and it lays out exactly what the game plan is. First thing is to do health care. Second thing to do is instantaneous amnesty. And they take all the illegals and put them in a health care position to be rewarded. This is a real travesty, and I'd appreciate it if you can push that issue out there so everybody can hear it, because it's something that has to be addressed, and health care has to be killed.
You are so right. Thank you very much. You know, folks, illegal aliens are prohibited from voting in United States elections. At least they are prohibited by the letter of the law. But they will have a significant influence on the makeup of Congress and the Electoral College as a result of next year's census. I intended to say this during today's program, and I'm going to repeat it every single Sunday. It's so vital, folks. The 2010 census will count all persons who physically reside in the United States and will make no distinction between legal residents. According to Louisiana State University constitutional law professor John Baker and demographic analyst Elliot Stonecipher, this will unconstitutionally give some states greater representation in Congress than they should have. and also deprive other states of the representation they deserve. How does that grab you, my fellow Americans? Straight ahead. Forging ahead here, I want to thank Yehudit, that's her first name, Yehudit, who resides in Brooklyn and is a steady, loyal WABC listener, who has sent me, and I got it in the week's mail, the copy of a publication called The Jewish Voice. The Jewish Voice. And it is in the year Tishrei 5770. A very controversial piece here, Yehudit sends to me, and let me quote. In a conference call with more than 1,000 rabbis before Rosh Hashanah, President Barack Obama encouraged the religious leaders to use their sermons on the Jewish New Year to promote health care reform. It is more than ironic that liberal Jews who call for a complete separation of church and state saw nothing wrong with the president scripting their sermons. The reason may be that the script came from a modern sort of Jewish holy book, what Norman Podhoretz called the Torah of liberalism. And then it goes on to ask this question. Why are Jews liberals? It's a fine and bracing examination of a question that has vexed Mr. Podhoretz and his colleague, Irving Kristol, has vexed both of them for decades. Mr. Podhoretz displays along the way the skill for supple reasoning and pugnacious argument that was the hallmark of his long editorship of Commentary magazine. Mr. Podhoretz grew up on the political left and remained there until the late 1960s, when he moved to the right. In Why Are Jews Liberals?, he ponders with a sense of deep frustration why so few other Jews have made his journey. Acknowledging that the allegiance of his co-religionists has baffled some people, he attempts to explain this. Before he can explain it, he says the big task is, first of all, to understand it. And I've been on the radio here in New York, as you know, since September 20th, 1970. And I've been asked that question many times by Jews and non-Jews alike. Mostly Jews have asked me. And it is a vexing question. But on many occasions, I have heard people say the tide is turning. And yet again, does it? I'm looking at some results of the gubernatorial election in the state of New Jersey. And Chris Christie got about 35% of the Jewish vote, which is considerable for the Republican candidate. Speaking of Chris Christie, he's got a big job, folks, a big job. He's got to cut $8 billion from the bloated New Jersey budget. Okay, let's go to Bill in Bergen County. Bill, are you there?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on next year's elections. I'm very comfortable with the fact that we as Republicans, and I've been a Republican since I'm 3 years old, and I consider myself very much a lifelong Republican. I'm comfortable with the fact that we're going to make very good strides in the House of Representatives, and I'm pretty sure we're going to take a majority again because based on what I saw in New Jersey and in Virginia in the elections there. But what concerns me, especially in the Senate, I think we'll take a good part of the one-third of the senators that are up for grabs. The senators that we send, and even the representatives that we send, we've got to make sure that they're real Republicans, and not some of these amateurs. You mentioned the fellow from South Carolina who surprises me. South Carolina is a very conservative state, but Lindsey Graham is anything but a conservative. Now, he did a good job on this.
Eric Holder, yeah.
He did a good job on Eric Holder, yes, but that's only one case, and I can point to many situations where he's gone along with the liberals and voted against the Republican Party in the Senate. People like him, not necessarily him, because he's been right many times, but there are some Republicans in the House of Representatives and in the Senate who shouldn't be Republicans. They should be there as Democrats, and they only run as Republicans because they can't get elected as Democrats in the districts that they run from.
Well, if they're so bad, then the next time they're up for re-election, their constituents will not vote for them.
Yeah, but
I don't accuse Lindsey Graham of voting against the Republicans. He's not voting against the Republicans. After all, he's a Republican himself. He may not follow the leadership. He may not follow Mitch McConnell, but that's all right. When he took Eric Holder apart, I thought there's still a lot of hope for Lindsey Graham. And if I were living in South Carolina and it were time for him to run for re-election, I'd vote for him.
Well, the primary could prove something different. And I think a lot of these so-called blue dog Democrats that are in the House of Representatives, but they went along with the health care thing that the Nancy Pelosi put forward. These people should be looked at very carefully also by we Republicans.
I don't know who went along with Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives. I didn't think they got one Republican. No, the only Republican vote they got was this Asian fellow from Louisiana.
No, I'm talking about the blue dog, the so-called blue dogs.
Blue dog. Listen, if they were really legitimate, you know what they do? They would change parties en masse.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to Danbury. No, let's go to, Danbury. Anyway, Ronald, are you there? Ronald, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Bob.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yes, they are closing.
Okay, it's the first time we've had to use a dump. All right, thank you very much, Crash. I think you did the right thing. And here's Eddie from Danbury, Connecticut. Hello, Eddie.
Hi, Bob. Nice to talk to you. Basically, America needs to know that all of these manufactured crises that President Obama keeps coming up with, it's all staged. He went to Columbia University where he met up with two radical university professors, Richard Cloward and Francis Piven. Their strategy is to force political change through orchestrated crisis. It seeks to hasten the fall of capitalism by overloading the government bureaucracy with a flood of impossible demands, thus pushing society into crisis and economic collapse, which is exactly what is happening right now.
I've been wise to Piven and Cloward for many, many years before our good friend from the state of Washington came to New York and learned about them. I've been wise to them for many years. Unfortunately, they've been under the radar, but citing those two socialists, for all I know, they may want to go that one final step and admit to being communists someday. I don't know, but I think this is so illustrative of why Barack Obama is a danger to the future of the American Republic.
Yes. Bob, may I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Given the fact that Barack Obama has surrounded himself with anti-capitalist, communists, and Marxists all his life, you'd think that after college, where he sought out all of these radical people to associate with, he's still doing it with all the czars that he appointed. Holdren, the former Green Job czar, Van Jones, all anti-capitalist, and he wants to redistribute wealth and meet social justice, righting the wrongs of the past. This man is the most dangerous person that we have in office today.
You're absolutely right. And what makes him the most dangerous, ladies and gentlemen, in order to represent a danger, you have to, A, have great power. Who has greater power than the president himself? That's question number one. The second is, in order to be a danger, you have to have a plan that is inimical to what you stand for. What is more inimical to what America has stood for than this overnight socialization of this country? He has hijacked what this country has stood for. And it's only been recently that some people are understanding why he represents such a great danger. Bob Grant here on WABC, straight ahead. In right now on WABC. Yes, hello, Denise.
Oh, hi. I wanted to talk about the pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
I see, even though they said Big Pharma made a deal with the president, he still basically wants them to go out of business, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, well, what's going to happen, let's say 10 years, 15 years down the line, if he gets sick or the senators get sick? Don't they realize without good medicines they could, be very miserable, even die?
Well, we'll have to see what it says in Karl Marx's book about this, because maybe, just maybe, you've stumbled onto something. Thank you very much. I appreciate the call. Before we slam the lid on things for today, I want to inform you of something that some of you may find it disturbing. Others may feel, what the heck. But here it is. Imam Zaid Shakir. Imam Zaid Shakir has high hopes for Islamic scholarship in America. Aspirations that include the first accredited 4-year Islamic college in the United States. Having gained momentum and funds in the past year, get that, and funds, Shakir and a group of American Muslims and scholars are now hoping to open the planned Zaytuna College next fall in where else but Berkeley, California. Very fertile grounds for anti-American dialogue. Now here's what the Imam says. Our goal is to attract top students. He told this to the Jerusalem Post, describing a mission to provide a liberal arts education and training in Islamic scholarship. Where Islam meets America is a working motto for the school. Offering courses in Arabic language and Islamic theology, the college is the brainchild of Shakir Sheikh Hamza Yusuf and Dr. Hatem Bazyan. Folks, don't have time to delve into this. But I must say, when I read about that killer in Fort Hood, that Islamic killer, you know who I'm talking about. Nidal Hassan where did he get his inspiration? He had an imam. He was in contact with Muslims abroad. But can you imagine what this school will be, this college will be? Is it going to be a place for learning? Is it going to be a place for academic credentials? Or is it going to be a brainwashing enterprise? Is it going to be an institution that will turn out more people who will go on to the property of a Fort Hood with a .45 pistol and attempt to shoot innocent people? See, you've got to understand it. I want to devote some time to this in future programs. That the advantage they have over us is we don't want to die. We don't want to get killed. We don't want to blow ourselves up. But they do. And so if they blow up, it's okay with them because that's their ticket to heaven. On that happy note, I tell you, that slams the lid on things for today and for this week. You keep that dial set to WABC. We'll be back next Sunday at 12 noon. Till then, your influence counts. Music straight ahead.
New York never sleeps. Neither does Curtis Sliwa.
This is absolutely nuts.
Nights at 9, 77 WABC. New York.